What form of LSD were you taking when you decided to do this? Explain yourself. Who did this?
Yeah. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Chemist Confessions podcast. I'm Gloria.
And I'm Victoria.
This is a human conversation on all the skincare science we talk about on the daily, also known as the wet blanket to your skincare aspirations. And nothing is more true than this episode, which is collagen drinks and supplements and whatnot.
We try not to. We really try. But yeah, this one was a tough one. It was a popular request. So we cannot deny it. We cannot put it off any longer. But
yeah, not gonna lie, I read a couple of those comments and we were like, oh, it's on to-do list, and I put it off for like 4 months.
Yeah, a lot of times they're like, seen. If I could leave a comment on seen, it might be this one, sadly.
Yep.
But yeah.
So Victoria did a lovely deep dive of this during the pandemic a couple years ago. So we're like, fine, it's time to revisit. But before we dive into whether or not supplements work, we'll kick this episode off with just a really quick biology review.
Mm-hmm.
This is a friendly reminder that this is a little sad, but collagen is in your skin is a key component to anti-aging anything skincare. You'll hear wild claims that's usually associated with collagen. It is a large structure protein that's made out of proline, glycine, and hydroxyproline mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you'll hear these specific amino acids being called out in these supplements, which can be important. There are a lot of different types of collagen in your entire body. There's about 28 types of different collagens. But in skin, the most relevant ones are type 1 and type 3. Type 1 being the most common ones. These are your extra large, some 300,000 grams per mole kind of molecule size. Big guys, that's your structure. They are the fibrils that hold up skin. So you'll hear this one claimed the most in your skincare.
Unfortunately, we do know that we do need to constantly replenish it as, we age. We just, sadly, the processes for regenerating this just tends to slow down or is just not as efficient. However, if you were to just take collagen and dump it in a cream, it sadly would just not be very effective because of its size being so big. So we always say if you do spot a collagen cream that touts having actual collagen in that moisturizer or serum, please consider that only as a hydrating ingredient at best, sadly.
Yeah. We even recently have seen people ask about products that claim to tackle other types of collagen, like type 4s and 7s are found much deeper in the skin. And I will say, if you find those claims, especially in a topical product, oh my God, we finally put that red flag to good use. Yes, Victoria is waving a red flag.
Shout out to Jackie. She had her show, How to Get a Second Husband. And this is one of those audience props we get. And I was like, Gloria will enjoy this so much.
Oh, I'm so sad I missed that show. But yes, the red flag is relevant and very appropriate here. Mostly because your topical products should not be penetrating that deep into skin. And even though those collagens are still important to your skin, they're not the types that gets associated with the plumpness and the structural importance that collagen 1 is. These are more, they have less coil. The coil's not as tight, so they're more sheet-like rather than rod-like, holding skin up. So these are just some of the stuff you might see floating out there.
I was just going to say how another thing that people don't realize is it's not just about replenishing the amount of collagen. It's also about the way that the collagen is structured. That network and how it's organized is also very important to general aging and that visual benefit that you're looking for. So it's not as simple as just injecting collagen into your dermis, basically.
Exactly. And we'll get into it in the next segments when we look at clinicals.
Yeah.
Some of the studies that we appreciate more are the ones that look at not just the quantity, but some of the structural aspects of it.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at, before we dive into whether or not nutraceuticals work, we should just mention that if you're wondering if there's any topicals that help, 2 of the big 4s that we talk about a lot on this podcast, vitamin C and retinol are the big dogs because they are shown time and time again to help support your collagen as you age. So yeah.
It's just you'll never hear it claimed that way because no one wants the FDA giving them a call. So, or the FTC.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's a really quick background on biology, on collagen, what it does for your skin, why it gets talked about so much, because it's just so related to our skin aging. But of course, the burning question we're addressing this episode is just collagen supplement. Is it a scam? Does it work? What kind of results am I expecting? But before we get into that, let's take a break, please. Let's take a break. Speaking of anti-aging, we have to talk about Double Play. This is our dermatologist-approved, gentle for even eye area use, but also clinically vetted retinol that has shown a significant reduction in dark circles, crow's feet, fine lines, wrinkles, and even hyperpigmentation.
Long story short, this clinical was quite the nail biter because we wanted to make sure that we were able to onboard retinol and give that a honest good period of 2 weeks. So pretty pleased to find that we could even get significant improvements in things like dark circles and hyperpigmentation by the 6-week mark, because that actually includes 2 weeks of onboarding where users only used it 3 times a week. We're honestly pretty proud of this product. All I can say is if you've been wanting to add an eye cream to your routine or wanted to tackle a few fine lines and wrinkles or hyperpigmentation, consider the Double Play. It could be a great fit for you. And don't forget to use CC Podcast 2024 for 15% off your first order.
All right. Okay, we're back. So when we started putting this episode together, I thought, okay, Victoria did this article back in like 2021. So then the focus is very simple. Let's talk about an update on collagen science. There's not that much of an update, so let's just get that out of the way. This is kind of old news, but we never really talked about the subject on the podcast. So we wanted to, talk about our general feels in this category. And to start, we have to talk about sourcing. That is by far the most important aspect of all of this.
Totally. So, you're always going to see on the inky hydrolyzed collagen, but ultimately there's many ways to hydrolyze collagen. And the goal and why they do this is because when they process it, they want to be able to chop up the collagen molecule. And that inevitably leads to peptides of different lengths. You've got different molecules of different sizes. Everybody's sourcing is going to have different ratios of some of these shorter, peptides. And so because of that, that's why sourcing can make such a big difference here.
Yeah, and we're not talking about these individual brands you might see on Amazon, on TV, in Costco. We're talking about the producers of these collagen. And if you've done your homework and dive really deep in the subject,
some of you have.
We have gotten people who ask us very specific questions about these different manufacturers of collagen. 2 of the big dogs here are Peptan and Verisol. So we're gonna dive into one of the clinicals that Peptan has done first.
All right, so the first one comes from the Peptan supplier manufacturer. They actually did a couple really great clinicals to validate their specific ingredient. And one of the papers actually shared 2 clinical studies that they ran. So hang in there. This is going to be a little bit of a clinical story, but the first one that they ran has about 33 subjects per group for 66 total. This was done in Japan. And the interesting thing is this Peptan molecule, they actually tested 2 different sources. So they actually have a Peptan version from marine sources, and then they have a basically porcine or pork based peptide. And so these 2 sources they tested, and what they had subjects do was it was a powder drink. The powder drink was about 10 grams, which is quite a lot. And they had to basically drink this drink for 8 weeks. And through that, we'll share some results here. They basically looked at tool, and they also looked at skin hydration levels using a corneometer. And through that, they saw that over this 8-week period, by 8 weeks, they did see an increase in hydration levels for both the pork and marine collagen one. However, they saw that the marine one had even better hydration level. And the other thing I should note here is that they did not see any significant effects in terms of tool. So if those of you are wondering what's the difference, it all sounds like moisture stuff. Think of tool as, it's the idea is that it's really an indicator of your skin barrier health and its ability to prevent moisture from leaving, versus a corneometer measurement is really looking at the almost like water amount in your skin and your actual moisture level. So they are seeing that in terms of hydration, this collagen supplement could be helpful. So that's the first clinical they did.
I feel like moisturization, even though topically collagen is also considered like a water grabber and might seem like a no-brainer, but to me, I always feel like if you're taking oral supplement and you're getting religious with it, you're very consistent, you want to see results, I don't know if hydration is what I would be gunning for there.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought this up because I thought the same thing. But then I also feel like if I were to guess, I think they were trying to figure out exactly which sourcing would be better, like pig
Right.
or marine. And then maybe they just had like a in with a corneometer and tool scenario or something.
Or like this thing, we have it on loan for like
Yeah.
$50. Let's just do a hydration study real fast.
Yeah, just give me a sign, any sign. But actually, you bring up a good point about this. I should talk about the profile of the subject they were looking for. For this one, they actually, it was done in Japan. They actually tested it on women between the ages of 40 and 59. So a more mature skin. And I don't know how they're able to do this, but they actually wanted subjects with low skin water content. That's the specific description.
They pick people with dry skin specifically.
Yeah. So I think in that sense, I feel like, okay. So in my mind, I almost feel like they're like, this is kind of really that introductory, like we're not really sure what it might do, but collagen, just like you said, might be a humectant. Maybe let's just start here and see if something happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they didn't stop there. They went on and did the second part of the clinical where they brought it over to France. And this time it's done on Caucasian women, also with mature skin between the age of 40 to 65, also for 84 days, weirdly specific.
Yes.
also a 10 gram per day dosage. And they did this every day for 84 days versus a placebo. And this time, what I find interesting is it kind of revalidated the whole moisturization thing. But the more important thing is this time they actually looked at collagen organization and structure at the end of the 84 days.
Yeah. And I should also mention that the cool thing about this is they actually made sure that women weren't using any beauty products the month before starting this. So they sometimes I think people are like, oh, that's such a minute detail, but those things can have an effect. Just with the way topicals are. For this one specifically, they actually had decided that we are going with the marine collagen version of Peptan, and so they did 2 studies, and I should mention that both of these studies are not that common in terms of, I guess, anti-aging measurements. However, they did 2, which is helpful. So more tests, more data. So the first study they did was an ultrasound, basically imaging technique, where they wanted to look at the vertical, imagine the dermis. They're looking at a vertical cross-section of the dermis. And
sorry, you can hear that, huh? Damn, I was trying to be quiet. All right, let me do this real fast. All right, I'm good.
So they did they took images of the vertical cross-section of the dermis, and they visually graded these images. And that's the kind of graph that you're getting. We'll put it up here. And they did see that even at the 4-week mark, they did see some improvement in the general organization. And then they further looked at it via a fancy confocal microscopy technique, just to also take some images, and they also just to kind of like further suggest that this Peptan product, when ingested for 7 weeks, is in fact helpful in terms of, I guess, improving your collagen network. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool. And I will say something that we really appreciate about these supplier data is that these are all placebo controlled, which I think compared to even topical products, like extra important. So for me, it's like, okay, it does something for sure, but how that all translates to you visually feeling like your skin is better is a little bit mysterious to me still.
Yeah. And I was going to add that this was something that I was going to save for the final section on our final thoughts, but I don't know, Gloria, you feel this way, is like, I thought skincare marketing is like very broad in the level of rigor in terms of marketing claims. But after looking at at supplements, and even those that say it's clinically tested, those claims are super vague. Like they just have a line that says improves skin, whatever, elasticity, wrinkles with an asterisk. And that's it. You don't know like what type of clinical it's coming from, how they're substantiating their claims. It's just so broad. So, I mean, the fact that we are able to even, go through this kind of data is actually like the gold star here. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes we do get a lot of nutraceutical questions in general, because the world is not short on the next like miracle pill or antioxidant that you should take as an oral supplement. And every time I look into it, I get a little frustrated, and I feel like the world likes to poo-poo on topical products, like these are hoaxy, like da-da-da-da, which in some cases well-deserved, like we ourselves make a lot of jokes on those products all the time. But oral supplements is where I think there's like a perception that because people are eating it, there's a level of rigor that surpasses topicals. And I find the way people talk about it, there's a little bit more trust in it sometimes. But the claims you read versus the clinical data is like can be really wild.
Totally, for sure. All right, so that's one major collagen peptide source. The other one that a lot of brands will use is a brand called Verisol.
Yep, they call theirs a bioactive peptide, and what they did is they did a lot of work looking at these different constituents, very specific amino acids, very specific ratios, very specific dipeptides. So they kind of looked at stuff like the hydroxyproline to glycine combo versus, it's like hydroxyproline to glycine versus the proline to glycine combo. And they just looked at a bunch of this stuff to come up with their product, which they did also put through a clinical study. And we're just going to highlight their version of it. They have quite a few clinical studies. I pulled the one that I'm guessing is their crown jewel because it has the largest sample size. This one, they tested 114 women, or about 57 in each group. Again, this is placebo versus their product. And this time they took a capsule. This is 2.5 grams of this product. So a lot less than the 10 grams that Peptan tested. They did this also for 8 weeks. And I'll put some of the results up here. This time they more compared to Peptan, they looked very directly at aging parameters and specifically on wrinkles around the eye area. And you can see from the bar graph that as time goes on, by the 8-week mark, it looked like general eye wrinkle volume on the active side has significantly decreased. And they even took before and after pictures, which I will say looks like controlled lighting adjacent. It's like it looks controlled, but not super lab controlled, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that's fair. You're like, oh, they tried to standardize, but basically it's just not a common profile viewpoint Gloria and I would typically see with these clinicals. So yeah,
right.
Not really
and
sure.
You just see a general improvement in skin texture, glow of this representative picture. I will say, what was I gonna say? The bar graph does look pretty impressive, but the y-axis is eye wrinkle volume. Yeah. And you're talking about a difference of 0.35 millimeters cube versus like a 0.3 millimeters cube. So again, like visually, does that translate to you waking up like, wow, I look like I slept 8 hours? I don't really know.
Yeah. I mean, these pictures are tough. It's like, I think I see a difference. And that's usually visibly what that translates to with this kind of bar graph improvement, to be honest. So
what I find pretty cool from their study is they took the supplement for 8 weeks and then they stopped taking the supplement and they measured eye wrinkles again 4 weeks after stopping the supplement, and it showed that result kind of held for a little bit thereafter.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I thought it was pretty nifty. Another thing that they did was they took biopsies and actually measured the collagen and elastin content in skin. Again, the idea is when you're ingesting these collagen, the pathway isn't suggesting that you digest these collagen and they get put right into skin. It's like a complex model of you have an excess of these amino acids that promotes healthy collagen development, maybe pushes skin to produce more. So it's not a super direct relationship, and the mechanism isn't really clear. So what they did is they try to show that, hey, by taking it, your skin's collagen level does go up. And it shows they measure very specifically collagen type 1, and it showed that it did increase compared to the placebo.
Going through these two papers, and definitely refer back to our collagen blog post, which we'll link below for YouTube watchers, but you'll see that each one is quite different. They're measuring different aspects. The time length of the studies they run are different, the amounts, the sourcing. So this is why we harp on sourcing matters, and when we talk about how to, for those of you that are trying to shop for collagen supplements, how to shop for the right one, just remember some of these facts like time point, results. You think about the amount needed, you need to drink, that idea. I think all of those will really factor into whether or not this is sustainable in your actual lifestyle and your daily routine.
Yeah, 100%, which we're going to highlight very briefly in this next study. This is one that's done very specifically on the Gold Collagen Forte, which is a drink product you can buy on Amazon. Victoria looked up the pricing. It is $47 for 10 bottles and $47 for 10 bottles. I had to say it twice because I'm like...
Yes, and the study was done for 90 days. So you do the math. Just understand that if you decide to go down this route, because this Gold Collagen Forte is also clinically tested with some decent data, that's going to run you to about a $430 experiment. So I would say just do all the math, consider if I were to go down this journey, it's like, okay, I'm going to do a concentrated effort. I'm going to sign myself up to do this for how many weeks? And then does that work economically? Does that work diet wise? Because chugging 10 grams of collagen, it just gives you I don't know, that's a commitment. So, all
100%. Yeah. But I will say they're not alone in that kind of pricing that you can find on Amazon or other popular brands that crop up once in a while.
Totally.
I will say give them brownie points for actually doing clinical, because we do see other very expensive brands that we cannot find their sourcing, nor can we find clinicals for. So this one is still like, if you can budget for it and if the clinical data speaks to you, I will say it's not the worst. Their clinical is with 120 people, 60 a group, and it's also placebo controlled. And after 90 days, I have to chuckle because every time I see this graph, I laugh a little bit. They measure skin elasticity and they took clinical before after pictures. I'll put the before after picture up first. It does look like, generally speaking, skin is more even toned, less blotchy. She just looks more youthful in general and more lifted. And the eye area wrinkle improvement is astounding in the before after picture. I will say they probably picked the extra good picture to go here. And then we'll put up the chart that shows the skin elasticity improvement. They show that on average, among these subjects, that between the placebo group and the test group did show a significant improvement in skin elasticity compared to placebo, which is very cool, by 7%. Yay! Woo! Yeah, again, so this is where all the parameters are good. It checks out that it does something, but in terms of the degree of improvement, I feel like when I was doing the research, that's what I kept going back to. It's like, okay, what are people's expectations of collagen supplements? If it's there for general support, you probably won't be disappointed. But if you're thinking about comparing it to, I don't know, like a retinol or tretinoin routine where you want to see visible lift, I'm not sure I'm convinced that that's what you'll see.
No, I totally agree. And I think this is, okay, it's like, I understand where, regulation comes into play, right? They don't want skincare over-promising and basically talking about like drug level efficacy. But at the same time, because, these ingredients, these topical ingredients, you can't talk about that. That totally leaves room for this scenario, right? You've got people looking for, well, I know my collagen levels are depleting. So I guess I got to get it in ingestion because it doesn't seem like I can get that in skincare. So ultimately, we should all know that in terms of, preserving our looks and our youth and general health, that's a whole comprehensive thing. It is not just all skincare. It is not just, all just a diet thing, right? These all have a factor in really tackling some of these concerns. So we got really existential about this in terms of how to best integrate this sort of interest into someone that's into a routine of like skincare, and how does that all fit? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to mention one last tidbit from the Gold Collagen study. This, you don't hear Victoria and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, which is this post clinical survey that sometimes products will give out. That's like, are you happy with it? Do you agree you see improvement? We don't usually place a lot of weight on these type of data. But for me, this one is interesting because it's an oral supplement and it's placebo controlled. And I'll put the chart up there. And generally speaking, across the board, the test product did a lot better in terms of in terms of satisfaction. Something like on the order of 80 to 90% of the people agree that they notice a difference in their skin, hair, and whatnot. And I thought this was actually pretty relevant here because the placebo group, the satisfaction is so much lower. It kind of shows that this is not just a placebo effect at hand here, and people do generally notice an improvement.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, the pictures are pretty impressive. And I think was one of the reasons why we had to showcase this one previously when we were writing the blog. It was actually, at that point, was probably one of the only ones that really we found that had a clinical. The cool thing was, well, I guess the cool thing now is that you can actually purchase this one, because I think at the time there wasn't a really good way to get this particular collagen source. Yeah.
And to sum up, those are 3 of the more interesting studies we found we want to share. I did find a couple of review studies. I'll look at clinicals on collagen supplements as a whole. Without boring you guys with the details, I just want to read a couple main takeaways here. One of the studies said, and I quote, all of the included studies, and there's 19 in this review paper, reported beneficial effects of collagen supplementation on skin aging parameters in both healthy and unhealthy subjects without any inconsistency. Strong statement. Again, degree of improvement isn't really talked about here. And in a separate review paper, they kind of point out something that was pretty interesting. They mentioned study using supplements with higher concentration of proline, hydroxyproline, and hydroxyproline glycine dipeptide show visible improvement of evaluated parameters after 4 weeks. There is no adverse reactions, but they mentioned that further studies are needed to evaluate the long-term use of these peptides, as the longest intervention among the studies lasted for only 90 days, with 120 days of evaluation of these effects. And that's where I feel like the limitation does come in with these supplements, is you have to take a certain amount of time to notice the improvement, but because they're still relatively new and I feel like there isn't any incentive to do any long-term studies per se, that we don't really understand what this all means for you in the long term. And I mean, generally speaking, I think common sense will say, hey, if you eat well for 20 years consistently, that will play a difference in your skin quality down the line. But when it comes to these supplements, will it make a visible difference, say 5 years down the road? I don't really know.
Yeah. And that's such a good point, because one of the beauty collagen adjacent categories is also just like joint care, right? That's actually probably even older realm of research. And those, in terms of clinicals, will commonly run like 6 to 12 months just to get any sort of meaningful data from that. And so the point here is just to say that, like, I think this time point is really just based on more like beauty clinical time lengths, but who's to say, what happens, post the 3-month time point? We just really don't know, and there's just really no data there to speak to.
Yep. So that kind of sums up the data we've found on this in this category. We're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna wrap this episode out with some shopping tips, and that's it. Hey, okay, it is time for Animal Fun Fact Corner. Today is my turn. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm gonna apologize ahead of time. I'm gonna continue on the journey of weird animal tongue facts.
Mm.
Today we're talking about a bug called Sibilla exigua. I'll put the spelling up on the screen so you can Google image it yourself. It is a parasite. What they do is they will go in and then chill on a fish's tongue until the tongue dies and falls off, and then the bug will sit there and pretend to be the fish's tongue. So when the fish eats, it eats too.
Wow, delicious.
Yeah. So this is really great. But I don't know why I just said it's really great.
Yeah,
it is not great.
Is it great? Gloria finds it to be great.
I find it very entertaining, but basically, this article says, and I read, after the parasite enters through the fish's gills, it latches onto the tongue with its 7 pairs of legs and begins to feed on the tongue like a vampire. Soon, the tongue withers and drops off, but the parasite remains masquerading as the fish's new tongue. I'm happy to report that the fish doesn't die from this because the parasite can't live without the fish. So the fish can still eat and hang out like regularly, so they live happily ever after.
Fish gets a friend, will never be alone.
Yeah, and this is one of those like nature is so metal type of things that it kind of catches the fancy of some pop culture. In fact, you can find a game on Steam called
No, you cannot.
Yes.
No, you cannot.
Isopodicee.
No, say it ain't so. No.
And the logo is literally a fish with like a bug as a tongue, and you can race in the game.
What? Who did this? Who? Explain yourself.
It's like someone heard it on a podcast somewhere and was like, "This is so cool! I'm gonna make a whole game out of it."
Let me look this up. Trash-infested power fantasy crawling sim with racing and crustacean elements. Set in the gritty, segregated world of ocean floor society. What form of LSD were you taking when you decided to do this? Explain yourself. Who did this?
Yeah. This is almost better than the actual animal fact itself, is the fact someone made this game. So yay, your animal fun tongue fact of the day. Yay.
Is that really its name? That it doesn't go by any other name. It's just Sibilla exigua.
I don't think it has. I didn't see any like colloquial names like.
That's so weird.
Exigua.
Do you know if it's any fish? Like, you know how we eat Asian culture eats fish heads? Like, do I need to think about this? I'm
so glad you asked that, Victoria. While I was researching it, one of the most famous images, someone got a picture of it infesting a clownfish, and so it's like Nemo gone very dark. So but it seems like they're not super picky on fish size. It's just if they're in the environment, that's what they go for. One of the most common species of fish affected by it is the red snapper. And there was a lawsuit at some point. I forgot what country. It was some Asian country where they tried to sue a supermarket chain because they claimed that they ate the parasite from the snapper that they bought in the grocery store. And the conclusion is like, well, this parasite isn't harmful to humans. And also, you probably eat it all the time without knowing it. So, and the lawsuit got dropped.
Perfect. It's perfect.
So next time you go to Asian restaurant and order a whole fried like red snapper, just
you just see everyone just like trying to like take your chopsticks and open it, the mouth. Just let me just check real quick. I just gotta know. Okay.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Google image is a wild ride with this one. Yeah. So
yay.
You guys are welcome. All right. On that fun note,
wrap this up.
Speaking of fish, marine or bovine collagen. That's why I looked it up.
Perfect segue.
To wrap this up, we polled you guys for some questions, and one of the top questions we got was which collagen source is the best, bovine or marine? It does seem like we have that one Peptan study that seems to show that marine is better than their pork version of it. but there's nothing that directly compares, say, bovine versus marine and whatnot. And I will say, like, the animal source of it doesn't quite matter. It seems like all research indicates more of the sourcing quality and the actual amino acid profile, how consistent they are with it. So I would say, again, the clinical evidence speaks more than just the sourcing.
Some other fun ones that you guys asked about is, will it make lasered off hair grow back? Probably not. No one's really looked, but it doesn't make sense that it would have a huge effect. Although I should mention, I believe it is Verisol that also did do a hair growth study. Or no, not hair growth, hair thickening study. And I think that one they actually ran for 16 weeks and did find like some sort of more on the thickness, but not like in terms of hair growing back or anything like that. So,
yeah, especially with laser hair removal, the idea is that the follicle is dead. And the idea with collagen supporting hair growth is, like Victoria mentioned, more general hair follicle health, therefore thickening, and you feel like your hair is stronger and longer. But if the hair follicle is already dead per laser, then it probably won't revive it. Last but not least, outside of collagen, we also got a lot of general questions about collagen adjacent things, like other oral supplements that claim to support collagen health, like hyaluronic acid. I saw questions on oral resveratrol, and then now people are claiming NAD. I'm just gonna say, I did look into all of this on a more surface level, since this episode is more on collagens. I will say that whole thing is a circus. The newer, the buzzier, the worse the data is. So I think the latest trend is the NAD supporting one. Those are super new. There's like not really any solid evidence of anything. Oral antioxidants like resveratrol and actually pycnogenol is one of those buzzy antioxidants that's looked at very specifically as an oral supplement. They can help your general skin health. I wouldn't call it like collagen support because there's not a lot of data in those departments. And then last but not least, oral HA. Topical HA works perfectly fine. You will see it as part of a lot of collagen powders formulas. Does it add a lot to it? Yeah. So that's it. That's your questions answered.
Yeah. So to sum up, all right. We should mention that in the realm of US collagen products, very few will, one, disclose where their collagen sourcing comes from, and two, share any good clinical data. A keyword is good. I mean, a lot of them will say like, oh, does this, but with an asterisk, but with very little detail on how any of that claim is substantiated. But the good news is Vital Proteins actually now does share where their collagen source comes from, and they actually do use Verisol. So that's actually a relief. There is one of them out there that we could find. And for those of you that also use collagen supplements, please let us know if you feel like there is a brand that's worthy of sharing to help other ones looking in this space. And to sum up, we just want to remind everyone, make sure that if you do decide to look into this and decide to try it out for yourself, make sure you give it enough time. And definitely, consistency is so key here. I cannot begin to tell you, like, you will not, it's already, if you look at the clinical data we shared, look at how long they had subjects use it for, and then look at the results. Most of them, you're like, I think I might have seen something. And that's with dedicated, routines. So that's why we would just want to remind people, just make sure you are giving it enough time before really seeing if there's any result or not.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of it too is my personal experience with these things, and I have tried a couple brands, is going back off of what Victoria is saying with consistency, is don't lie to yourself about how you feel about the taste. I have tried many collagen drinks that the data looks decent. I'm not looking at it as like a miracle, but I'm like, you know what? It's good enough for me to think of it as support. But as I'm drinking it, I'm Will I drink that every day? No. It took me like 3 months to finish a 1 month supply. And then what does that really do? I don't really know. In terms
Yeah.
of the powders, I've actually tried quite a few different brands that's popular in the US. Usually when it's on sale at Costco. Of the powders, I actually do like the Vital Protein one just because it's the most tasteless one. I hate the ones that make because for me the easiest thing if I were to be consistent with it is to add it to coffee. But the ones that give your coffee a faintly like meaty
sense of beef?
taste. Yeah, like just a hint
Beef
of
essence?
meat. Yeah, it's like, ugh. That's my take on my experience on collagen still myself. I will say there was one time I gave in and tried the chocolate flavor one. I don't know why I did that. It was so, yeah. Yeah.
No.
I was like, oh, I drink it with coffee. It's like having a mocha. It is not like having a mocha, guys. It's like beefy mocha. It was not good.
Beefy mocha is not a word pairing I thought I would hear today, but
yeah. But
good to know.
Anyway, let us know if you try any collagen supplements you swear by. If you see a brand out there that you think their clinical is pretty good, let us know.
Yeah. Otherwise, we hope this episode was helpful for you all. Yeah. If you have a burning question that you would like to ask us, you can email us at info@chemistconfessions.com. Check out all our long-form content on the blog at our website, chemistconfessions.com. Definitely head to our Instagram, chemist.confessions, for the polls that shape every one of these episodes, just like this one. And finally, we are on TikTok, just under Chemist Confessions. Don't DM us there. We don't really respond yet.
Well, anyway, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode and we will see you all next week. Hello!